This being an actual medieval whittle tang. This one is 15th century Bavarian. I guess it's slightly post-medieval.
Okay.
And that's a part of the world where every farmer turns up a couple of blades in the spring when they plow their fields, because there's just that many of these kicking around. They don't have any scientific value to the museums, which means they can be legally sold, and you can buy those in lots of 50 on eBay. That was forged 600 years ago or so. These, on the other hand, are step-by-steps coming from, this is just round bar, 3/8 diameter.
Okay.
And the alloy for this is W1. That's it's iron with about 90 points of carbon, which is 0.9% carbon. And it's the carbon that actually makes it able to harden to make a blade. So to walk through, if I'm working with something like this, the first thing I do is I square up the end. Then I put a point on it. This is going to be the tang, and I always forge tang first whenever possible.
How do you make it into a point? Just hammer?
Yep, all of this is hammered, hot. And once we pointed it, we flatten it, at least a little ways. Then we take that, I don't know if you can catch this, hang it over the corner of the anvil and strike an overhanging blow, which creates the step. That's going to be this step up here. Flatten a little longer. This is the part that's going to be the blade. And we're still showing the round because we're pretending it's still on this big long bar. Okay, mark in where the tip is going to be. Remember, this is the shoulder. At the spine, this is going to be the edge.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
All right. A good knife has a distal taper. That means it's thicker here and it thins toward the tip. So here,
right.
I've started to run in the distal taper. And finally, we get to cut it off the bar. So no more round bar attached. That means everything from here has to be done with tongs. And as before, this is going to be the edge. Now we go to the banana curve. Hammering on steel is a lot like hammering on stiff clay. The steel squishes. It doesn't just go away, it doesn't compress. So it has to go somewhere. This inside part is going to be the edge. So we're going to hammer thin that, which means the steel has to go somewhere. Some of it's going to drop, and some of it's going to stretch. So we put this reverse curve in before we put the edge in because the blade would end up curled way back otherwise. We're fixing the problem before we create it. That's still awfully thick for a knife. So the next step is thin it down some more. And that is finally ready to put an edge on. Now, this one I had to close my eyes and deliberately screw up a little. You can see it's janky, it's not very clean. That's fine. At this stage, I've just put an edge on it. You notice it nosed up.
What does that mean, nosed up?
Where's the example? This was the edge here. You can see it's nose down. When the edge gets forged, it starts to nose it back up because the steel stretches.
Got it.
And it forces it up. But these problems are easy enough to fix. Here I'm just showing it doesn't matter if they're a little lumpy. That's all easy to correct. This is one where everything has finally been cleaned up and corrected. And you notice the tip is almost all the way up. That notch, yes, you can forge in a notch, but there are a lot of medieval knives you see that do it this way, that don't even have a notch there. That just gets hidden by the handle. Once we've got that, we grind it clean of whatever, so all the bark is off the scale. There's our focus. And then burn it into a handle. Now, you'll notice this is off quite a bit. I did that on purpose too.
When you say burn it, what do you mean burn it into a handle?
I have a small pilot here, pilot hole I drilled. I heat this up. You can even see the colors where it's been heated up with a torch. And then just burn it in. And that's how we get a perfect mate to the handle.
So when you drill a hole there, I assume you're drilling a series of holes
I'm
next to
usually
each other.
just drilling one because this will go right along in it
Okay. And that'll just make the hole bigger to fit in the handle?
by burning the wood, yes. And that was done all the time in the Middle Ages. If it's a little crooked, as this one is, that's actually okay. The handle is oversized, and you can correct that by just removing the parts of the handle that are out of position. And here we have a perfectly acceptable knife. It's not yet mounted. It's unusual to have the square shape to the handle, but we can point to examples. Round is much more common. But this is effectively a finished knife. I can't remember if I've heat treated this one, but all
What
it
is
means
what
is
does heat treating involve?
Heat treating. Heat treating is taking the steel from a soft state that won't hold an edge to a hardened state. We do that by, with this steel, heating it up to about 1550 Fahrenheit and then cooling it quickly. In this case, by dunking it in oil. At that point, it's about as hard and brittle as it gets. It'll hold a beautiful edge, but you drop it, it might shatter like glass. So the next stage is called tempering. That's where we heat it back a little, say 350 Fahrenheit, 375. That releases a lot of the brittleness, stresses, and tensions, and it only drops a little of the edge retention.
Okay. I assume you do that before you put the handle on, right?
Well, I've got it at this state most of the time. Then I heat treat this. Then I mount the handle.
So are you tempering it before you mount it?
Yes.
Okay.
And for mounting, I take this slot, that you can see here, and I pack it with powdered frankincense.
Powdered what?
Frankincense.
Oh, frankincense, yes.
Heat the tang up a little, slot it right in, it melts. Once it cools, it's medieval hot glue. And that's fully mounted and done at that point.
Very cool. Thank you.